feeling sleepy? I'm your host, Mr. Creepy. Don't fall into the wishing well. Listen to my stories from hell. Ghosts in the afterlife. The werewolf who chomped his wife. A headless dentist on a ATV. The chicken corpse haunting KFC. Ever seen a vampire on a plane? A zombie slurping brains? While you're in your bedroom smoking Indo, didn't you notice the ghoul at your window? Sit back and relax your bones. Get onto your laptops or your phones. The YouTube address FYI is Mr. Creepy's time to die.
Bad evening. I'm Mrs. Creepy, your host. Tonight's story is about a young actress who struggled to pay her bills while desperately hoping a door would open for her in Hollywood. Well, trust me when I tell you that that door did open, but what she saw inside made her run away when they called action. I was living around the Hollywood area at the time. Just like a lot of people, I was trying to be an actress, but I didn't really have much of a resume, even after going to auditions for a few years. I worked a few part-time jobs here and there, but most of my bills were usually paid by my parents after a bit of begging. After seeing me upset one day, one of my friends, who wasn't in the industry, told me about a possible job. There were parties that were put together by usually powerful and well-known people who worked in the entertainment industry. All these parties would usually hire staff to cook and serve at these parties. My friend knew about the parties because the company she worked for provided some of the alcohol. When she told me how much I would get paid for one night, I quickly agreed. I was working part-time at a restaurant as a waitress, so I was more than qualified for the job. But the only catch was that I had to sign a non-disclosure agreement. That didn't bother me at all. On the day of the party, I arrived at the destination super early. It was at a giant mansion in the hills. There were vans and staff already there, working to set up the place. I eventually met up with the coordinator, who told me that the first thing I would have to do was sign the non-disclosure agreement. After I did, she told me that my job was basically to just walk around and serve a tray full of drinks at all times. When I heard that, I told myself that this was going to be the easiest few $1,000s I was ever going to make. But a little while after, I would find out that it was going to be a costume party, and all the help had to wear a costume as well. When they showed me the outfit, I was a little shocked. The outfit looked like something you would wear during a carnival in Brazil. I asked if I could cover up the outfit a bit more, but the coordinator told me that it was in my contract to wear whatever they told me. After a bit of thinking, I just gave in. There was too much money involved, and I at least looked good in the outfit. Eventually, guests started arriving at the mansion, and the party got on the way soon after. Everybody was wearing Venetian-themed costumes, so even if the guests were powerful or famous, it was difficult to recognize them. I even heard them referring to each other in names that sounded like codes. Of course, I found the whole thing weird, but I figured that's just how some rich and powerful people like to party. I definitely wasn't going to cause trouble and risk not getting paid, so I just did my job of walking around and serving drinks. And for the most part, everybody seemed nice. I did find it odd that when I tried to talk to a few of the other staff there, most weren't interested in saying more than a few words. They'd give me their names, but who knows if they were made up as well. As bizarre as it was, I just kept telling myself to think about the money. I spent the first few hours serving drinks in the common areas, but I was eventually told that I needed to bring some drinks to an upstairs bedroom. Even the bedrooms and rooms were labeled with names, but I won't be disclosing that info here. I took a tray full of drinks and for the first time walked through a hallway full of doors. But as I was looking for the designated room, I heard noises coming from some of the rooms. Right away I knew what the noises were and what was going on behind them. I realized that this wasn't a costume party, but it apparently was a sex party as well. Whether the proper term was swinging, orgy, or whatever, it didn't matter. It was the same thing as far as I was concerned. Of course, I suddenly felt uncomfortable. I had no idea that this was gonna be going on. And at the same time, I had no idea if my friend knew either. There was a point where I was just ready to run out of there and leave without getting paid. But I needed the money. I just told myself that this is the kind of stuff that happens in this town, and that I better get used to it. So I just continued looking for the room that I was told to bring the drinks to. After doing my best to not pay attention to the many noises coming from many different rooms, I eventually found the one I was looking for. I stood outside the door, but I was nervous to knock. I had no idea what I was going to see when I opened the door, but I forced myself to knock anyway. I could feel my body tighten, bracing myself for when the door opened. But once it did, I was glad to see a fully clothed man with a mask answer the door. The rest of the room was empty. He was more than happy to take the tray full of drinks from me, but the whole time, I could tell he was looking me up and down. And this is where the story gets even weirder. Because of his voice, his eyes, hair, and a little bit of skin I saw, actually recognized who the man was. He was an actor that I had seen in movies before. He was not a big-time actor at the time, and he never really did get super famous. But I knew who he was. That's when I got nervous because I didn't want him to realize that I recognized him. And before I was able to walk away, he started asking me if I wanted to stay for the private party. Even though I've never been to any of these kinds of parties, I knew exactly what it meant. I started to shake a bit, but I was still able to politely refuse the offer. And that's when he actually told me that if I stayed, he would tip me a considerable amount of money. Now, I have to admit, hearing the amount almost made me consider it for a second. I had no interest in doing anything sexual, but I figured I could stay and just be a spectator. But I quickly realized how stupid it would be for me to put myself in that kind of situation. So I declined the offer again and started to walk away. But just as I did, that's when a group of people arrived to join him in the room. They were who the other drinks were for. Before I could excuse myself to walk by them, the man in the room told them that I had refused his offer to stay. Upon hearing that, the group full of men and women in costume started pressuring me to stay. At that moment, I went from being uncomfortable to feeling like my safety was in danger. Being surrounded by a group of people in masks who were trying to talk me into staying for God knows what sent a cold shiver throughout my body. It honestly felt like that one scene in the movie Eyes Wide Shut. Even though they were practically begging at that point, I stood firm in refusing the offer. I was eventually able to walk away despite their groans of disappointment. I didn't look back and kept walking until I eventually made my way downstairs. As traumatizing as that incident was, I somehow convinced myself to stay for the rest of the night. And fortunately, nothing that disturbing happened the rest of the party. Don't get me wrong. I was hearing noises coming from different rooms here and there, but at least I didn't see anything too weird. At the end of the night, I was paid in cash and went home. I was, however, so bothered by what I had just gone through that I had trouble sleeping that night. The next day, I asked my friend to share details about what exactly she had gotten me into. But she just told me that she had no idea it would get that intense, and told me that we shouldn't be having the conversation we were having because of the contracts we signed. Even though the whole thing was a bit traumatizing, I did at least get paid. And it's a good thing because I really needed the money. I didn't take any kind of job like that again. And I definitely couldn't watch any movies again that involved that actor.
Mr. Creepy here. Friends, we don't care what you thought of tonight's horror story. If you don't stab the like button and slash the subscribe bell, this will happen to you. No! No!